Hi. So recently, Tim Binnall did another fantastic show. This time he was talking with a PhD up in Canada called Eric Ouellet, and it was a fascinating discussion. If you're interested at all in the paranormal and UFOs and the connections between them, go stop this and listen to it right now. Because it shows what can be done with the existing information that we have. I mean, we have a ton, decades of case histories and information about, for example, flying saucers, encounters with strange lights in the sky. Um, and we have a lot of areas of information where we just don't really have much of an idea of what's going on. So it's very frustrating to know, okay, how can we go forward to actually increase our understanding of these objects, the effects that they have on individuals and society. So what Dr. Ouellet has done is investigate it from the angle of a sociologist. He's a trained sociologist, and to basically take UFO waves and poltergeist infestations, used some tools of sociology and tools developed by another parapsychologist, mapped it onto both cases, and seen that there are these structural similarities between the two phenomena, which, tells us quite a bit about, okay, what's actually happening here and how can we go further into studying this and actually, as I said before, increase our understanding of these phenomena. So this got me in mind of a bunch of books I've read over the years, which have touched on this process of using our existing information, but just interrogating it from different angles, using different disciplines. There's, of course, people always think of science because flying saucers, they seem so sciencey and technological. At the same time, they also have profound effects, again, on society and individuals. You can look at like Vallee's work, Dimensions and Messengers of Deceptions are two great books if you're interested in that aspect. Also, Confrontations of the Phenomenon. And so there's many academic disciplines, sociology, anthropology, history, literary theory, which haven't really been brought to bear much on the paranormal side of life. And I think we could really learn a lot more if this was done in a more disciplined fashion. So I thought I would haul some books out of the bookcase and share them with you if you're interested in this last show. Again, all props go to the living God, Tim Binnall. I've been a fan of his for years, and I really appreciate what he does. And this should get you going if you're interested in that area, to learn more about how this can be done and less and such. My brain just stopped. Anyway, on to the books. Okay, so here's the first one, which is, I think personally, this has like the best book title of all time, Poltergeist, red, all bold, all caps, with an exclamation point. It's by the fantastic writer Colin Wilson. And it is very interesting in light of this show because, of course, Dr. Ouellet was looking at poltergeist infestations, which Wilson does as well. He covers it through history. He also covers the whole angle of the teenage girl with family troubles who ends up manifesting poltergeist. He also looks at poltergeist infestations that seem to have no focus, is what they're generally termed in that instance. He looks at them, as I said, through time, through various cultures. He has a lot of examples. He has great footnotes if you want to read further on the topic. He also, and this is another reason why I really like this book, talks about the occult / ritual magic connection. I think in addition to the academic disciplines, that there are many cases which point to a connection between ritual magic, intention, the role of consciousness in altered states in this area of human life. And so he also discusses this here. Anyway, Colin Wilson, Poltergeist, Studying Destructive Haunting. Great and fantastic stories if you like weird stuff. More weird stories. The Tujunga Canyon Contacts. This is written by Anne Druffel and D. Scott Rogo. Of course, Tim did an excellent two-parter interview with Anne Druffel years ago, and it's a fantastic listen. And this was published in 1980. She puts it here, it's a continuing chain reaction of UFO encounters and abductions. They are investigating kind of a group of UFO encounters and some what looked like abductions, which happened in the early 50s, starting in the early 50s and continued for about a decade in this one particular area of the canyon surrounding Los Angeles. What's great about this is that Anne and Scott, who unfortunately died many years ago, it was a tragedy, and a big loss to the field. Anyway, they both are different people with different experiences and backgrounds in investigating the paranormal and the ufological field. So you get these cases, this group of cases, which they also look at from kind of the sociological or group angle as well as the individual. And then you get two very interesting, experienced, smart people coming to their own conclusions. They each have their own conclusions section in the back. And again, it's very interesting. They also use hypnosis in studying these cases, and the careful way that they go about it, the way they really respect the health and physical and psychological of the individuals involved is a wonderful example. And sometimes they say we could probably learn something, but it's too stressful on the individual experiencer, so we won't do it. So I have a lot of respect for that. This will blow your mind, this book, PK Man by Jeffrey Mishlove, which documents his relationship with Ted Owens, the PK Man himself, who was a guy who brings all the various parapsychological phenomena together in one man, who not only experienced all these things, but also could very often bring them to creation on demand and also teach other people to do so. For example, let's go see if you can scare up a flying saucer. He has many documents where people have gone and witnessed that, he was able to teach me to call structured craft down where I and other people could see them. We went out to a bridge together. He said he could cause lightning to strike. There was a few clouds, nothing big, and he caused lightning to strike, etc. It would take me a half an hour to even try and convey what is in this book. All I can say is you should go and read it. Jeffrey Mishlove also does a fantastic job of looking at how the individual and society kind of reflect each other and influence each other around these charismatic individuals. And he has throughout the book, as well as I believe 1 or 2 chapters focusing on this, how do we study these types of very rare spontaneous events in a way that will make sense from a scientific or more analytical perspective. And he has some great ideas for how to do that. So again, Jeffrey Mishlove, the PK Man, this has been out there for I think about a couple decades and has dropped like a stone, which tells you something about the Ufological Society. Okay, speaking of stones, we have Earthlights Revelations by Paul Devereux. Another fantastic book. He is looking at the interaction between anomalous events, lights in the sky, which we can't identify, and the Earth on which we live. Geological structures, Earth lights, mystery UFOs and mystery light phenomena, the Earth's secret energy force. What he is talking about here is the stresses and strains that accumulate in various rocks, crystals, minerals under the ground, and how they could accumulate and then be released in various ways, which can cause lights and also other forms of energy, which when he gets to the conclusion of this book, he's talking about how this could possibly be used even as a method for various forms of consciousness to interact and speak with each other, or communicate with each other, communicate information using this form of energy. It's very interesting. He has a ton of cases in here, maps, he goes area by area. He has a lot of interesting books out there, and I would recommend anything that he's written, but this one in particular is great for looking at the relationship between anomalous lights, anomalous states of consciousness, strange things that happen generally, and the Earth and what's going on there. This one everyone knows about, The Mothman Prophecies by John A. Keel. Thank you, Mom. My mom is so sweet. She actually got this book for me as soon as it was reissued. She was already on the internet big time, and so she knew that right away and got me a copy of this book. So thank you, Mom. It's really sweet. You'll notice this is the reissue. This is the one that I recommend that you get because it has an afterwards in there. Remember how I was speaking about the occult angle, the ritual magic angle? So in the new afterwards, Keel writes, another somewhat surprising fountain of responses came from the men and women who quietly practice magic with a K, not to be confused with sleight of hand type magic, and witchcraft. Their letters often ended with the code Blessed Be, and many of them seemed to live in a dark world where Mothmen are not unfamiliar. More than anyone else, they understood what I had gone through in West Virginia. They offered many interesting insights and made many worthwhile comments on my material. Why is this important? Well, what is everyone constantly complaining about in this field is like, well, we can't reproduce these things. Well, it doesn't have to necessarily be done in terms of invoking, particular entities or whatever, but I think some of the techniques that people use to alter states of consciousness in occult settings and in ritual magic forms could be brought to bear on the experimental realm, I would think. And so reading about that area would be very productive, I think. The other thing about the Mothman Prophecies, there's another book called The Silver Bridge by Gray Barker, which also addresses the events surrounding Point Pleasant in that time. And taking the two together, it's very interesting to look at it from Dr. Ouellet's angle as far as what was going on in the society at large and that particular community while these events were occurring and afterwards. So again, Mothman Prophecies and The Silver Bridge by Gray Barker. Another one which talks about communities and individuals and what are the circumstances which could possibly create various anomalous events. This one is called Mind Monsters. It's by Jenny Randles. I love the fonts that they've used here. Invaders from Inner Space. In this book, Jenny Randles, who, again, another person I'd recommend anything she ever wrote. If she, wrote a menu, I'd probably recommend it. She looks at instances where people have seen all different species of monsters. Sky, earth, water, various types of monsters. And she brings a lot of these kind of things that I've been speaking about together to evaluate these cases, the idea of ritual magic or instances where people are focusing their intention and their consciousness. For example, you had some guys that were practicing, I think it was like Taekwondo or some other form of martial art. And she also looks at the Earthlights angle, the whole idea of tectonic strains building up and then being released, making these energies available. And also the ways that states of consciousness can be altered. Now, one of my favorite parts of this particular book is she has an instance where three guys were out walking, I think near a canal or something. All of a sudden, all of them are drawn to this object. Two guys scream, start running away because they see a big hairy monster with claws and two glowing red orbs. And the other guy's kind of like, what's going on here? We just kind of saw a misty cloud. Now, they were all close enough to touch this. And it's fascinating. You see a big old blob of some type of energy. One guy just sees the blob. The other guys, it would be fascinating enough if you had two guys. One guy saw the blob, another guy saw the big hairy monster. But the two other guys both saw a big hairy monster instead of like one saw a Bigfoot thing and the other saw a pterodactyl or the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man or something. So it's interesting to see how it kind of points towards Paul Devereux's idea that these energies can be used to encode specific types of information or trigger particular archetypes in people anyway. Again, Jenny Randles, and this is a great one for looking at that. Okay, I don't have Carlo Ginsburg's book, The Night Battles, here with me. I have Ecstasies, Deciphering the Witch's Sabbath. This isn't from a paranormal perspective. This is fantastic, though, for showing you what you can do with kind of crummy evidence. Carlo Ginsburg is what they call a micro-historian. Which sounds ridiculous, like you have a little person this tall running around in the library doing history. Actually, he's average size, as far as I know. What he does is he's very interested at what the people who were kind of on the outskirts of society, the lower rungs of society in the Middle Ages, were thinking and feeling. What were their myths? What were their worldviews? So like, for example, the people who are being persecuted by the Spanish Inquisition, what were their actual beliefs and feelings? Now, this is really a kind of crummy situation to get at this, because we have plenty of their testimony, but it's all being taken down by people who are torturing them and wanting to convict them of all type of heinous crimes, and definitely have their own agenda big time. So how do you get around that? Well, Carlo Ginsburg has made this his life's work, and he shows how you can use various intellectual tools and disciplines to get at really learning a lot about things when it looks like it's just, hopeless. So his one book, The Night Battles, is much thinner than this one, and it's fascinating. It tells the story of like Friulian werewolves and other people who were being persecuted by the Spanish Inquisition. It looks like they were practicing some forms of shamanic astral travel, and very interesting. He's an engaging writer, and you can find his books in many libraries. Actually, many of these books and writers you can find just in the library, which is great. Okay, getting back to the occult angle. I love this book. This is about the fourth one of these books that I bought. The other ones have been loaned out, never came back, and you can see that I'm loving this one to death. Dion Fortune's book, Psychic Self-Defense, a Classic, a study in occult pathology and criminality. This is great for looking at how would an occultist go about studying anomalous events. How do you, when you have some very strange, someone thinks they're being attacked by a vampire night, something like that, how do you tease it out? She also has some great appendixes in the back for things that you can look for when you're performing an investigation, how to evaluate someone who's trying to give you information that may be psychic in nature, all that type of stuff. She also has, just like crazy, fantastic types of stories in here, and it is just very interesting if you're interested in the whole kind of occult angle and how this could interact with or bring forth some of these various strange, anomalous events. It's an excellent reference book to have to hand. A couple of other books I do not have here, but I wanted to mention them. First is George P. Hansen, The Trickster and the Paranormal. Again, this is a classic, very dense. He's looking at literary theory, anthropological work, sociological work on liminality. And this is basically, it's like a social or individual state where things are in flux. For example, being engaged to be married would be, for example, a liminal state. You're not single, but you haven't quite made it official. So when things are in flux like this, he finds that it's often very associated with paranormal occurrences of every species. For example, if you're moving house or having construction done, you'd be more likely to have a poltergeist infestation or see ghosts. Anyway, that's fascinating. George P. Hansen, he has many interviews that you can listen to, as well as many writings online that you can read, and they're excellent. Joshua Cutchin, of course, I have to give a shout out to him because I played tuba when I was a small girl, actually through high school. So, of course, I have to worship him because he's crazy good tuba player. And also his book, The Trojan Feast, is excellent. It takes just kind of one weird aspect of paranormal encounters with alien entities, being offered food and drink. It says, okay, if we just kind of look at this one angle, what can we take away from it? Can we learn anything? Can we find any patterns? And he really has. He's also a great storyteller, very smart, does incredible research. So Joshua Cutchin, The Trojan Feast, another excellent one. If you're interested in, first of all, really weird stories, and also, again, the role of the occult, and how can you use something that's so denigrated and looked down upon by science and the academic disciplines to actually really investigate and find out very interesting information about UFOs, encounters with strange beings, and anomalous events, then Alan Greenfield is your man. What's it called? Secret Rituals of the Men in Black, and he has written another one, which I'll put in my notes. I can't remember the name of it right now, but both of his books, those are just excellent. Again, he has a few interviews out there that you can listen to, and very detailed information, but very interesting as well in terms of, well, how can we go about finding out more about the intersection between occult practices, rituals, states leading to altered states of consciousness, and how this interacts with flying saucers and other paranormal events. So I should have a list of all these books in the notes, and I hope you find it interesting, and hopefully you'll find a few new books that you can, or authors that you can chase down and read, and hopefully get different outlook on some of this material, and you know, continue, how do I want to say this? Oh, excuse me. That it will just rekindle your interest in this topic, and hopefully also kindle some new insights when you're looking at this material anew. So thank you very much for your time, and happy reading. Bye-bye.